Forgot to bring myself in again. What up? What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to Blood Splatter Chatter Live. It is Zombiefest. I am stoked to be here. And tonight we got an awesome zombie double feature. We're going to be finishing off the night with a conversation on Return of the Living Dead, but we are kicking it off with Lucio Fulci's Zombie. Yeah, buddy. What up? What is going on, everybody?
Thanks, y'all.
My man Stu in the building with me tonight. Dude, thank you for being here, man. I appreciate you.
Of course, man. Thanks for having me. Always love hanging out with you on Thursday nights, bro.
Hells yeah, man. I'm really excited about this. This is I started out, we were just gonna do zombie tonight, and then I'm looking at the lineup, and it kept just driving me nuts that we didn't have a horror comedy in the lineup, dude. Because like most of the best zombie movies, or most of the best horror comedies, in my opinion, are zomcoms. So I had to add Return of the Living Dead, and I'm like so glad I did because I'm semi-obsessed with that movie, dude. You didn't grow up with either of these. This was the first time watch for both of them for you.
For both, man. For both, yes. Like I said, I've watched one of those Romero ones before, but like zombies has never really been my lane. But my mom was big Bram Stoker. Like we were a big Dracula household growing up. But yeah, first time watching both of these, and I loved it, man. It was like you said. You told me when I was before I started Return of the Living Dead that I was going to watch it with a grin on my face the whole time, and I damn sure did. I just had a ball, dude. It was such a fun throwback one, and Lucio Fulci Zombie was a completely new one for me as well. But I enjoyed the low effect, like the low cost budget feel of it.
Right.
I love the music. Both of them had great music. Both of them had some great similarities and practical effects and music. But yeah, these were both great films.
Hell yeah, dude.
Yeah, dude.
And it's the same thing for me, dude. I had surprisingly, I think a lot of people grew up with this one, Return of the Living Dead. Far less grew up with this. Some people know about it. I know Fable said he grew up, he'd seen it a few times when he was a kid. I'd never even heard of it until recently. It was a couple years ago that Jelani, our buddy from Pop Culture Philosophers, I reached out to him. I was like, dude, let's just do a movie review together. Like, pick anything. And he's like, Zombie. So him and I, it was when I was doing comic books still. We just did a random review. It was like the first non-comic book thing I ever did. And it was on Lucio Fulci Zombie. So that was my introduction to it. So for those of you out there that don't know like how this movie came to be, basically, Stu, you might not know this either. Basically, where's it at? Where is it at? Oh no. Oh, right here. Dawn of the Dead in Italy is called Zombie, right? That was the name for it over there. And they made this as an unofficial sequel to Zombie. Pretty much in Italy, you could do stuff like that. Copyright laws aren't the same. So this has like 15 different titles. It's called Zombie Flesh Eaters in the UK. It's Zombie over here. And it's Zombie 2 in Italy, which is where Zombie came out. So that's why it's got so many different names. And that's why it kind of acts as a prequel in a way to Dawn of the Dead, because at the end of the movie, you've got all the zombies showing back up to New York, and that's where things kick off in Dawn of the Dead. Or I think they're in Pittsburgh there, but they're in the States, so that's what's clutch. But yeah, let's just jump into it, man. It's just the two of us tonight, and you fine folks in the chat. So I appreciate you guys in the chat being here as we get things rolling. I know we got a big thing going on over on a lot of the PCP crew is probably over at Lost in Comics tonight.
Yeah, he's got his award show going on.
Just as I got going on, I saw that, and there's like 7,000 people in the chat. I'm like, oh boy, right? But we got me and you to break down Zombie.
Absolutely, yeah.
So let's jump into the thing. What was your overall thoughts, man? You kind of laid it on me a little bit, but what did you think of the film?
Dude, I loved it. I thought, obviously, I knew. I had like just doing a little bit of research going into it. I knew like the practical effects and the gore were up there, but like really experiencing the movie firsthand. Anytime we got a kill scene, man, it was righteous. I thought they were all super gnarly, creative, like with the shark underwater. I thought that was a super awesome touch. I thought the story could have been told a little bit better,
right?
As far as some of the layout and stuff like that, and some of the characters' decisions were bizarre, but regardless, I thought it was great, man. There was some. I told you, before in the back chat, there was some like there was like a headshot that turned out to be a red paintball, and you could definitely see it was. But like the fact that I could see like it was cheaply made, but the effort was still there, just made me appreciate it
Are you
more.
talking about the one where it's kinda like this old guy and it's just a headshot of him, and then he gets shot and you see, like, blood splatter on the back of the wall and then he falls out of frame?
Nah, it's just it's at the end when they're making their last stand with the
Right,
and the
right,
burning
right.
building. Yeah, I don't know if there is
Right,
that
I
blood
mean,
spatter,
well,
but
I was only gonna say it 'cause
it's
there's
just
there's certain moments like that that it's just I'm just gonna repeat what so many people say about Italian horror films. It's style over substance, and that's what it is every step of the way. Like, you've got the zombies coming out of the earth, and they're coming super slow.
yes,
You got the character just standing there for, like, 3 minutes, and then he finally comes and attacks her, and it's like, "Get the fuck out of the way." But does it look cool as shit,
it
and
does.
the atmosphere awesome, and the music awesome? And that's the decisions that they make in Italian cinema, just like the shark scene.
Absolutely,
It's
man.
like, why
So
the
well
hell
said.
would they do the shark? But it's like, why not? Because it's awesome and people are talking about it 43 years after the fact.
Yeah, it is, and yeah, the music was a star. Like I thought, it's insidious in some points. At some points, it's like kind of deceivingly light and positive. But yeah, and then like we could do a whole show on the way the zombies looked and some of the effects they pulled off there. I thought
Well,
were incredible.
you said beforehand, and I was curious about it. You said you'd watched one of the Romero films. Do you know which one by chance?
No,
What up, Chill? What up, Sal? Just because I
I don't offhand, brother. I'm sorry. I'd have to.
No, it's all good. That's just the thing is like I wanted to make the comparison. I was gonna bring up some slides and do all that, but I figured whatever. We'll just talk about it instead. Like, if you compare this movie to Dawn of the Dead, which is Romero's second film, he did Night of the Living Dead, Dawn of the Dead, Day of the Dead, and then 3 or 4 more zombie films that you don't really need to concern yourself with. But basically, dude, like, it's the level up from the practical effects from Dawn of the Dead to Zombie, which was filmed a year later, is batshit crazy. The story, it's not nearly as deep. Like, George Romero is a great storyteller, but Lucio Fulci is more of like he knows how to make a craft a beautiful movie, like a beautiful movie with the ridiculous gore. I meant to look it up, the practical effects guy. Maybe I will while we're chatting at 1 minute or at one bit because I never hear his name mentioned. And that's the guy that deserves so much of the credit for this movie. You know what I mean?
Yeah, man. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like obviously the eyeball scene was a standout, but like I especially love the stuff when they're just like how they look coming out of the ground. Like the scene where they kind of thought they were getting away towards the end and they were resting in the jungle, and then
Yeah.
homegirl got her hair grabbed,
Yes.
and that was just it was so well done. Like every time you saw one, it was great. The gore was like over the top, but it was also believable at the same time, and
Right.
it was so much fun, man.
Hell yeah. What up, Two Gun in the house? Chill out, man.
Chill,
My
what up,
brother,
brother?
Sal. Appreciate you, gentlemen. Pop it in. No, dude, hell yeah. I'm trying. I'm over here frantically trying to look up this effects guy, dude. I'd like to get his name on this show at one point. Too good. Look up the effects guy for me, would you? This is
What
what I
were
was gonna
some of your what was some of your favorite? Like, did you
dude.
have any favorite?
Anytime this is kind of like the perfect example of like how it's yes, it looks incredibly fake, but it looks almost better than real at times. Anytime that there's a throat being torn, like that zombie that I'm talking about,
I'm always a sucker for the throat hair.
it's so good, dude.
It
I
is,
honestly think
man.
like here's what's so good about this movie. The acting, no. The story, no. But find me a movie with better zombies and more atmosphere and better practical effects during the zombie kill scenes. Normally there's not a whole hell of a lot of creativity that goes into a zombie kill. It's a lot of just people being
Very true.
bitten and screaming. But yeah, man, there's the one at the beginning where the cop gets his throat ripped out, and then the one that I was talking about where the woman gets her throat ripped out. The fact that she's wearing this white outfit and they cover that bitch in blood and just the way that looks, they knew what they were doing there. But what I was going to mention is the stretching of the skin. It's like, does skin work like that? No. But do I wish that it did? And should every time that someone gets their throat ripped out in cinema, should it stretch like that? Fuck yeah. Like
Yeah,
that's the way I'm looking at it.
yeah.
It looks so good. I wanted to ask you, did you know 2 things? Did you know about the shark scene and did you know about the eye scene? Like going into
No,
it.
neither. Like, no. like obviously it like blew me away like viewing it, and like I went and um looked up some like reviews and other specials on the movie like after I viewed it, and like of course those two scenes were I did it was cool to find out like the shark scene was ended up being the shark's trainer or whatever. I guess they tried somebody else and then he ended up just doing it himself, but I thought that was really well, like he pulled that off in a really believable way.
I mean, for what it is,
Yeah,
totally.
absolutely. Like, I mean, there's some parts in the scene where you can see like, he's not really making contact with the shark, but for what it was, I thought that was really dope.
Right. I mean, it's silly as hell, but there's like I still remember the first time watching it just being like, "Wow." Like, what the fuck am I
Yeah,
watching?
man.
It's so silly and it's so unexpected.
It
And
is.
it goes on for quite a while. And the way he's like it's like this underwater ballet, the way he's moving back from it at one point, and then he puts it's so obvious. He's got his arm tucked in here and he's having the shark like rip off this fake arm. It looks terrible, but at the same time, you got to applaud him. It's like
It
that's
yeah, and then sometimes you see like him trying to bite the flesh, and he's not even like his mouth is not even touching the shark. But
right.
like you said, dude, like who else?
And it
Who else
makes
is
0
running
sense.
over with the shark and
Zo
doing that? Like,
Zombies don't eat sharks. They can't, you know what I mean? They eat humans, so it makes no sense at all. I'm pretty sure there's gotta be zombie shark movies out there, and if they
for sure.
don't reference this movie as the origin or at least
What are you
allude
doing
to
out
it,
here?
yeah,
Exactly.
yeah,
Right?
you're not doing great. Um,
Yeah.
uh, we mentioned the music, we mentioned some of the practical effects. I told you ahead of time that it's like, first of all, I was expecting there to be 4 of us, so I'm like, "Oh, we'll extend this quite a bit longer than that," but it's not a deep movie in my opinion. Like,
No,
what
very
did you think
straightforward.
of the story? Like, its weaknesses? Was there any strengths to the story for you? And you guys in the chat, oh, thank you. Two Gun is saying, thank you so much, Two Gun. Gianetti De Rossi did the practical effects, man. Thank you, brother. I appreciate that. I appreciate him too. But
Yeah,
yeah,
shout out you too. I appreciate you, bro.
what'd you think of the stories
Um,
or the characters? Was
the
there any,
story was
was there
okay enough.
good?
Yeah, I mean, it was simple enough and straightforward enough. Like I said before, I just wish it could have. Some of the jumping around with the scenes was a little um convoluted and clanky and kind of off to me. But like,
Hmm.
I thought the story was very straightforward and believable. Some of the characters' decisions were bizarre. Um, like we're just talking with the shark scene, you're approaching like they're approaching this sketchy island that they know is a sketchy island, things going on, and like so you're gonna get naked and scuba dive
Right.
like and or, like on approach like that, and then like after when they're on the way out, homeboy freezes up when he sees old girl, he gets bitten, and they still decide to put him on the boat.
Yeah. They
Like
didn't know the rules.
locking
They
him
didn't
up
read the
as
rule book.
yeah, locking him up like thinking like that he was going to be proof, and then of course they get to NYC and but that's besides the point. That's just picking holes in it. I thought for the most part it was straightforward. It wasn't the best thing. It wasn't the worst thing.
Right.
It
It's
was
pretty much
it served the story well enough.
the way I look at it, and our homeboy Robbie, I was about to say he might disagree with me, but he wouldn't. He knows it. There's they were not fantastic storytellers in the 70s in Italy, in my opinion. This is something I heard Tarantino speaking about recently, that we're like now falling behind. The United States always we were the greatest storytellers in cinema for years and years and years. And that's where, like in his opinion, what he was saying, we've kind of lost it. And every time I go back and watch these older movies, these foreign ones, it's like he's 100% right, but they didn't care. Like it's not to them, it's just like we don't care about the story at all. It's just about putting and I'm
It's
making
about
excuses for
style. I feel
yeah, I'm
like
not saying it's better though. It is worse. Like Dawn of the Dead is a billion time better movie than this, but this movie is still lovable. You know what I mean? It's earned its place in cinema history because of the look of the zombies, because of the practical effects and the atmosphere.
and I would argue like style. The stylistic impact carries as much influence as a good storytelling does when it comes to impacting future directors and people who decide to get into the industry. I feel like
Oh, fuck yeah, dude.
what I
Well, I
mean.
mean
Everybody loves a spaghetti western or
right.
an Italian horror film for
It's kind of wild
what they're
how
famous for.
here's my thing after and I've been like in as you know, dude, I've been like in zombie mode. I said it last week, but like January is Zombie Fest here on the channel, but December and part of November has been Zombie Fest here at my house, man. and I have yet to find zombies that are anywhere near comparable to this. Like no one's taken the time to do the makeup effects or do the practical effects or just to make this many good zombie designs. There's a film that came out that I almost hesitate to even mention on this channel because it's got a long history behind this movie. But Burial Ground, Two Gun, you know this flick. There's like a copycat movie that came out a year after this that just redoes a good chunk of the scenes from this movie.
Really?
And they just put masks on the zombies and it looks pretty dope, but it's still like it's in no way comparable to this
Yeah.
movie. It just
No,
can't.
dude, that one shot you had at the beginning of the intro with the worms, like come on, man, that's next level stuff to me.
Right. And just
So
those angles too to
yeah,
get
absolutely.
that's chill out, man. I almost actually deleted that comment. Says, blame Robbie for exposing me to Italian horror. And same here. Like we were talking ahead of time, like I am new to so many of these things. Like I hadn't watched any of these Italian horror films. Like there's a good chunk of the movies that we cover that we will be covering that I am just now learning about in the past couple years. You know what I mean? And yeah, I would have never seen Zombie if it wasn't for Robbie and Jelani introducing it to me 100%. But do you wanna elaborate at all on anything here? You want to go ahead and give me your final thoughts on this? We'll grade it. You guys in the chat, we're gonna grade it as well. And yeah, we'll just move on to Return of the Living Dead. I'm sure we'll touch back on this flick at one point.
No, man, I think yeah, overall solid effort. Obviously great practical effects, which have stood the test of time. I think we still enjoy them very much watching it, for this show. So shout out to everybody who worked on that in this film. Great music. Yeah, and a great little film for a little low budget flick. I thought, it was had a serviceable enough story and enough great kills, great fun moments that made it a flick that I enjoyed. So how are we grading it again, Berno? Refresh my
Uh,
memory. I'm sorry.
no, we're go. I'm the one that's making it confusing. I sit here and debate this sometimes. I'm like, I sit there and tell myself, like, you know what? The more I do this, the more I do just like out of 5. And fucker, they were right the whole time. But I'm stubborn, so give me a letter grade, my friend.
Letter grade. I'll go, dude. I'll go a solid B plus on this one, man. I enjoyed this one a lot.
I'm
Yeah.
right there with you.
So
That's
yeah,
that's
B
pretty
plus.
much the grade for it, dude. I don't want to give it an A because of all the flaws and how, like, if we're comparing it to movies of its generation and in its subgenre, there's ones that do a lot of things so much better than this, but there's almost no movies that do what this movie does well as this movie does it. So I'll go B plus as well, man. I think every time I watch it, I enjoy it a little bit more. And it's because I'm like just accepting the fact, like, okay, the story, it's not what it is. It's
Yeah,
just the atmosphere is there for me. And is it a little slow at times? For sure. But I don't think it's like, I still think the pacing is pretty good because everything that's about to be coming up is always worth the wait. It's never like, oh, we're waiting 10 minutes for a scene and the scene comes in, it's not worth it. It's like, oh no, it's fucking more than worth it almost every
yeah.
time. So
Anytime you hear those tribal conga drums come in, you know it's trouble. Dude.
oh, that's another thing I wanted to mention that I appreciate about the film. There's like there's this voodoo Haitian history
Aspect.
behind the
Yeah,
zombie lore, and it all comes from that era. So they're down in the Caribbean, they're bringing it back to its voodoo roots, and the scientist that's on the island, the doctor, I like that they're not just like what Night of the Living Dead does. They didn't just straight up say, "Oh, it's a scientific thing" or "It's a supernatural thing." They kind of left it in the middle, and the fact that they introduced this possible voodoo origin to this movie, but then they have this doctor trying to figure it out and give a rational explanation to it. And there's even something where his wife's pissed at him. I'm going to tell people what you're doing. It's like, did he cause the zombie
yeah,
outbreak? You know
yeah.
what I
I
mean? I
don't
don't.
know. Yeah, it's very confusing, like in the storyline, and him looking at the things under the blood on the microscope, and he's all over the place with it.
Right,
Like
right.
he's obviously forgotten his Hippocratic oath at some point. Like I don't, he's got those people tied up. I don't know, I don't know that he's being the best doctor to this village of people, but um, yeah, it's wild. Like
It
I
makes
like how they intertwine it though and do leave the mystery, like you said.
right, right, right for sure. Oh, what was I just gonna say? Oh, the other thing I'm curious about. This guy watched another movie a couple days ago. What was it? Oh, it was Reanimator. This guy, he throws a sheet up over his head and he like starts raising himself like up out of the bed. And I'm like, damn, is he getting that from this movie or did that happen in movies prior to this? You know what I mean? Like, I'm not expecting you to know the answer. I don't know the answer,
I know what you're
but
saying though.
that's kind of like a thing that you do see. You see corpses
Plenty of
rising in
times.
sheets. Like, is
We see a lot of corpses rising in this one. There's a lot of slow rises. Yeah.
right. Oh, the other thing I did want to mention, this is something I did kind of want to have a visual reference for. Another thing I'm watching is like the hands coming out of the ground, right? Like just the way that they're coming out of the grave. And I'm sitting here thinking, you don't see that in Night of the Living Dead. You don't see that in Dawn of the Dead. The zombie flicks that I'm familiar with, you don't see that. So then I'm thinking, like, God damn, is this movie responsible for the image of a hand coming out of the ground? But I will say this: there's a movie called Plague of the Zombies that came out a couple years before Night of the Living Dead, and there's a dream sequence in that movie. If anyone is a fan of this film or just a fan of zombies in general, just get on YouTube and search up Plague of the Zombies dream sequence. And it's kind of incredible, like how influential that movie is. Like it's zombies coming out of the ground slowly and walking around looking like zombies before Night of the Living Dead, but they weren't like flesh eating infection or infected zombies.
Yeah.
But pretty interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. I
Oh
don't
man.
know, man. That'd be interesting to see the timeline on who did what, like first, as far as
Right.
shots and scenes.
Right. Well, that's always what I'm most interested in. That's like what I kind of sit here and obsess over, trying to figure out, like, oh, who started that? Oh, who was the first one? And there's always someone earlier. You always think you found like the first of something, but there's always something before. But all right, let's go dive into our next flick. I hope this isn't too loud. So if it is, I apologize. All right, Return of the Living Dead from 1985. This flick, directed by Dan O'Bannon. And Stu, I was kind of telling you the story behind this earlier today, but basically, Night of the Living Dead was co-written by George A. Romero and Jack Russo. And then I really don't know how it went down, what the legal reasons were, but they ended up agreeing to divvy it up, where Jack Russo got the rights to use the Living Dead titles and George A. Romero got the rights to use the Dead titles. Kind of seems like Jack Russo got the better end of that deal, if you're asking me. But that's why we have these two separate franchises that both kind of in a way spin out of Night of the Living Dead, where we've got Dawn of the Dead, Day of the Dead from Romero, and then when we get Return of the Living Dead 1, 2, and 3 that stem out of Jack Russo's original book, which he wrote, which was Return of the Living Dead, which was a much more straightforward sequel to Return of the Living Dead. There was no comedy element. There was no punks. There was no, like, pretty much anything you see in this movie was in that book. But they bought the rights to that. They decided to make a movie. Dan O'Bannon, who directed this, rewrote the screenplay into what we see today, turning it into this, horror comedy, kind of a 80s punk, like the most 80s feeling movie I've ever seen in my fucking life. It's this and The Lost Boys duking it out for the most 80s horror movies, at least of all time. But this, dude, I'm so excited to have introduced you to this movie. So lay it on me, brother. What did you think, and what did you guys in the chat think of Return of the Living Dead?
Oh man, I loved it. I loved it so much. It was such a fun ride, start to finish. Well written, well paced, great over dramatic character actors. Like it was cheesy and corny in all the right places. It's just like you could see watching it now for the first time, like how you could see like every scene that went by, I was like, oh, I completely understand why this scene is a cult classic or this scene is a cult classic, or, because just reading all about it and what it did for some of these people's careers. Yeah, Juana Man, Cheel, I was the same way. I was like, at first I was like, is that Juana Man? And it must have been hot as shit where they were filming, because they were out in that graveyard. They were sweating like hell. But
right, well, yeah,
it was amazing. Yeah, thank you for this one. Honestly,
well, yeah, dude. That's what I always say. Like, thank you to the PCP people in general, because like I never got into this. Like, I was not into older movies. I had just like Like, okay, I did that back in the day, and I didn't like go back and rewatch old 80s flicks until I started hanging out with Robbie and all these people. So it's like I'm so glad because this is up there with The Blob for like my favorite 80s movies. There's something like
Yes.
perfectly corny and fun. It's just like they knew how to have fun. And this is another thing. I say the same thing about Zombie. I don't think anyone's ever really topped those zombies in Zombie, and I don't know if anyone has ever matched the tone this well in a horror comedy to have like I'm not saying it's scary, like it's not a scary movie, but the threat is real. Like once the threat like is once the zombies are introduced, there is a threat that never leaves the
It
whole
is.
entire movie, dude, right?
Dude, the first time he jumps on the radio and is like, send more paramedics, I was like, oh shit.
Right.
Like it was such a great twist, man. That was yeah, yeah. And it's definitely they definitely I remember when those paramedics are first trying to get away, the speed in which Homeboy opens the door and gets inside, like, yeah, they're a different breed for sure. So
Right, right. And
yeah.
that's another thing is like I wouldn't have realized it. I hear people all the time credit 28 Days Later for giving us fast zombies. It's like, no, these zombies
Yeah,
are
dude, they were
cruising, dude. You see
yeah,
that one
man.
paramedic get tackled at one point? They come out and fucking take him down like a linebacker, dude. It's fucking
He got
badass.
laid out, dude. They were ordering them up like pizza, man. And they ran through the blockade, like the police roadblock. They had no time running through that. So yeah, definitely a full on threat.
Right, hell yeah. Okay, so let's get into it this way. I figure this one I do want to get a little bit. We kind of blasted through Zombie. We're gonna get a little bit more in depth on Return of the Living Dead because it's a little bit more in depth of a flick. What up, E? Thanks for stopping
E,
in,
what
brother.
up, bro? Appreciate you,
So
brother.
let's go ahead and get into it this way, man. We'll start out with the way that the movie starts out. Like the performance, his name is James Karen. Did you recognize that this is the same dude that we saw a few weeks ago in Poltergeist? He's Greg T. Nelson's boss. He's the guy that runs like the real estate company.
Oh, I did not put that together. No.
It's because he's a completely different dude in this. And he, in my opinion, James Karen, his name is Frank. There's the what would you call him? There's Frank and Freddie. They're the two guys that we meet at the beginning. They start this whole thing. Frank's the older guy, and just like you said like he's like overacting or whatever. You had a good word for it. He's so
Yeah, it's
top.
dramatic overacting.
Yeah, he's setting the tone for the movie perfectly. And then Freddie, who's with him, who's played by the same guy that plays Tommy Jarvis in Friday the 13th, Part 6, he's
Yeah,
kind of
many
impersonating
of us,
what
man.
James Karen's doing the whole time. They're on that same level. Their boss, Bert, who they call, he is this actor that I should know his name, but he was a pretty prominent guy. He's like a well
Yeah,
respected actor that came into this movie, and he's playing a completely different style. He's playing it straight, and you've got these two just hamming it up and the way that it collides like is so fucking perfect, man. But
it is.
what do you and the intro to this story, like when he's sitting down telling him like about what's going on in the
Yeah, yeah,
basement,
yeah.
it sucks me in. Like he's whispering and I'm leaning forward. It's like I don't know. There's something about the way that he tells that story
Same.
that
And then
just
he's like,
sucks
"You want to
me
see
in.
him?" And I was like, "Oh shit! You mean they're there?" Like, because he was talking about it in the past tense, I swear. And then you find out they're down there, and it's like the barrels, man. The barrels are so insidious, right? And then it just fucking cracked me up. He's like, "Of course not. These things are built by the U.S."
Yeah, I know.
He slaps the shit out of it. It's just like instant fucking.
So
It's
good.
all goes
You
up.
know what I love about that too is first of all the slow motion that it goes into. It's kind of corny and it's kind of the age, but it does kind of give you that horror element. But then the way and they continue this throughout the movie, it follows like the virus or whatever it is, the thing that turns people into zombies. It follows it up through the ducts and then
Yes.
down into the zombies, and you see it spread. Then later on, when they burn the bodies, you see it do the same thing where it goes up into the rain, and they continuously follow it throughout the film. It's fucking
Oh yeah, absolutely. And to tell that, I loved how they did it at the beginning with the opening credits, and you see like the one that they had up on the hook is just like starts like in the bag. That was just like, yeah, dude, so well done. I yeah, like you were saying also like earlier when they burn the body or later rather when they
mhm.
burn the body and it goes up in the smoke. I love the music that goes with it, the
Yes.
soundtrack then, and then like yeah, the acid rain. How that's and like how they kind of use that as a recurring theme later in the movie to kind of set up the rest of the franchise was I thought that was so cool.
Oh, absolutely, dude. I'm like, yeah, I'm so in love with the storytelling of it and the way that it unfolds. It's so organic. Like
It is.
I feel like the first time I watched the movie, I wasn't like giving it the proper respect. I wasn't like fully locked in on the flick. I was just kind of like, oh, I threw it on and I was just kind of watching it. On a rewatch, I was like, just the way that they tie the punks together with the older part of the cast, the more seasoned section of the cast, is so brilliant. Like I don't know, it unfolds very naturally to me. But basically, when they head over to the mortuary now, so they introduce I can't remember the other guy's name, but what are any of your favorite moments just from these chunks? I was gonna bring up the point where I'm fucking this all up. What did I want to say? I wanted to get into the part where they're turning into zombies, where we've got Frank and Freddy turn into zombies. Because to me, that is like the most horrifying and the most real. Like, oh my god, like this is kind of not being so funny at the moment and
Are
getting
you
super
talking about the
serious.
guy, the pair that got gassed?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, dude, it was brutal, especially when it reached the kind of the height of it when they were locked in the chapel and they were just like screaming in utter pain. And that poor girl, decided to stay with her man in there, which was, definitely the wrong decision. But yeah,
Oh yeah, she made a few
that was
bad decisions
gruesome.
that night.
But yeah, I love how they kind of like they wake up from the gas, dude's terrified. Like I especially love when he was beating the half dog, like the little it
It's my favorite part. It's probably my favorite part of the whole fucking movie, dude. It's so good.
that was so funny, and how the sounds, like the sound effects there were so perfect.
Their
Yeah,
reactions afterwards, like when they're like, with the two of them kind of running to the office, like, what are we gonna do? I don't know. He's like, boy, if you like this job. It's so wacky and over the top. And
it
especially if you've
is. It's
seen
very
Tom,
Abbott and Costello.
yeah, yeah. If you've seen that Tom Matthews in Friday the 13th, it's so different. Like he's not like Tommy Jarvis character. It's really cool for me to see him in this role because I know him very well as Tommy Jarvis.
Yeah.
Um, uh, the punks. Let's get into the punks a little bit, man.
Oh man.
Now, these are not the greatest of actors. This is where it's kind of a swap. We've got our A team over here, the ones we started with, and I think almost all these guys are terrific actors. I think almost everybody besides the Puerto Rican guy that's playing a black guy are pretty shitty actors, which is funny. I didn't know that till watching the commentary. Like, this guy is actually Puerto Rican, but black was in at the time, so we went that route.
Dude,
It's pretty much what the guy said.
I was looking for his name
Plays
like before
Spider.
the show started, and it's Miguel Nunez. I
Yeah,
was like, what? Yeah,
he's
I
in
had
a
no idea
Friday.
he was Puerto Rican. Yeah, that's crazy.
He's in a Friday the 13th movie. He dies in a shitter at one
Oh,
point
really?
in one of the Friday movies. But what I was gonna say is they're pretty much the amateur almost actors. Some of them are actors, and then one of them is literally just a stripper, not the one that gets naked. Another one is just like Dan O'Bannon's favorite stripper from the strip club that he talked into coming and being in the movie.
Homegirl that got naked had a relationship with somebody on that.
She probably had a relationship with a lot of people. That is Linnea Quigley,
Yeah,
who's like an 80s scream queen. She's in Demon Knight. She's in a bunch of shit, and she's kind of we'll say it like this. She plays a bit of a slut in everything that she's ever been in. Not that she is, but she plays characters that are promiscuous.
fair
But
enough.
you guys in the chat and you, man, what do you think? What do you think of the punks, man?
It was hilarious. I read somewhere that they had like 2 weeks before shooting to get to hang out and get acquainted, and I thought that came off their camaraderie and their, like, despite them being a complete oddball bunch, and like if you saw that group walking down the street, you'd be like, what in the fuck is, like, who put these guys together? But
I wonder how much they would have stuck out in 1985. I feel like they
you're right.
almost would have stuck out as much as they do now, but I don't know. You know what I
I
mean?
don't know. I don't know, man. They might have not stuck out at all. Who knows? But yeah, I just love from the from the jump, like their introduction when they're walking down the street and they're like, "Have you ever thought about death during sex, or
Do you
sex
ever
during
think about
death?"
dying? It's so stupid.
It was, it's hilarious though. But a very believable premise. Like, hey, we're waiting for our homeboy to get off work. Let's go fucking raise hell in the cemetery for an hour or two.
Right.
And like the hijinks that ensued were great. Getting to know each one of them in their own little moment for the most part was great and hilarious. So
Hell yeah,
yeah,
dude. I can't get over their look together too. It's like there's something about that the first time you see him, and it's like the five of them walking in a row.
Yeah.
I want to like dress like that. I want me and my buddies to dress like that. Like we should be dressed like that right now, dude. Like why aren't we? And the car that they're driving around in is so perfect. It's so
Yes,
fitting.
right? It
There's,
is.
there's a
Yeah.
lot of good shots where they've got the camera angled perfectly to just line up all their heads in the car that fill the frame. And I just love anytime that they do that in the car. And the way that it's just again, the way the story folds so organically. Like, okay, we're waiting for Freddy to get off work. He knows where all the best parties are, and the cemetery's next door. So then they have to run next door. They end up with the two. I don't know, man. It's just so fucking it's so goddamn
It's like
smooth to
we
me.
got we
What
got
up?
these
What up,
flares.
Kenneth?
We got these flares. Homegirl's gonna, put on a dancing show on top of this gravestone. It's a party. It's a party in the cemetery.
I'm trying to look over here at some of my favorite moments that I have. I think we've touched on quite a bit of them, man. My probably my favorite moment is the dog. I wrote that down as like favorite moment. And like
That was
the rigor
so
mortis
funny.
setting in, the way that they set that up earlier, where the guy kind of explains rigor mortis, not like in the best, most subtle way. You could tell that he's setting that up for a reason. Oh, this is something that I found interesting in
I
a
love
really
the. Oh, sure. Go ahead.
oh, just the half zombie, the one that comes in and is explaining like brains. I'm in pain if
Oh
I
my
don't eat
god,
brains.
yes, dude. And like, how many like you talk about an influential scene? Like, how many of those have we seen? Like
Oh yeah.
those those half decayed zombies that are hilarious and you know talk back and give you lip or something like that. I felt like that was a first up right there
Well,
in
even
cinema.
just well, I thought you were gonna go with it. It's just the brains. Like when I
Well,
was a
yeah, for
kid,
sure, but just like
I remember being very young and I'd never seen this movie and saying brains like this. This started brains. This is why zombies say brains. It's the only fucking thing zombies say. You know what I mean? They never said anything in The Walking
I
Dead.
like the brains coming out of the homeboy who escaped out of the one of the tanks or whatever. God, he looked fantastic. The look on that guy was
Yeah,
amazing.
Tarman, the
Yeah,
like the
Tarman.
black guy.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I knew he. Yeah. Oh my
he's like the
God,
most
the look on
famous
that was.
zombie.
Dude, the look on that is so incredible, man. It's so perfect. It's everything you could want.
And like the way that he's walking,
And he moves, yeah, his movements.
Dan O'Bannon. This is one thing. Like he said, and as he's saying, I'm like, did you really, or did this actor just do this on his own? He says he told the actor to walk as if his spine was slipping off of itself. So he's doing that. But it's yeah, he's definitely got a unique ass his walk and his look. And then when he gets one of the few kills that you get early in the movie. It's actually like 45 minutes in by the time we get the first kill. When he bites the big punk in the brains and rips his head open and starts eating him, it's just the shit, son.
Hell yeah.
But
Absolutely, yeah.
oh, this is what I wanted to say about the half zombie, talking about if the zombies don't eat brains, they're in this like crazy pain. Dan O'Bannon had Crohn's disease. I'm not super familiar with that, but I guess it causes you to be in a lot of pain. And he's talking about it in the commentary. Like 2 years prior to making this movie, he was in like terrible, agonizing pain for like a year, pretty much. So that's why, like, that is what inspired him to put that into the flick. And I just thought that was cool as shit.
Yeah. That is cool. I always thought it had some insidious military like that was the ambition of the chemical was to like make and like they specifically wanted to like it made people specifically want to eat brains to take out the enemy or you know what I mean?
Oh,
I
right,
don't
right,
know.
right,
That's
right.
kind of like where I thought they were going with it because it I don't know. It started with the military and kind of ends with them in a way.
Hell yeah, man. Okay, so we've touched on the punks, we've touched on our people in the mortuary. What about the zombies themselves? We kind of touched on them a little bit too. They're fast as fuck. They like to eat brains. Do you have anything else? Any just
Mhm.
good zombie moments or comments on the zombies themselves?
No, I just like the ruthless horde in this one, but like in Fulci Zombie, we get like kind of like some single malicious like thought out kills kind of like with the eyeball and the like but here it's just like dude, I love the scene where they homeboy is dressed as a policeman and is line up all the police cars and then they all get out and they just get bum rushed. Like that was just so good. I just like I love like I said, when the first time they hopped on the radio, I thought it was a game changer. I love how they they're kind of like one step ahead here, and yeah, like I
E
don't know.
even the way they're, like, planning stuff out too, like, the moment where the one paramedic goes out to his car, and he turns on the lights, and they're all, like, standing in front of the car, which is
Yes,
super
what a
fucking
great
creepy.
shot.
That's one of, like, the more creepy moments of the film. That he gets out, and he gets attacked from the other side. They all come get him, like, they're
Yeah,
also the way that Tarman's got, like, he's working with tools and cranks and levers and
right.
shit, pulling old girl out of that locker, yeah. Well, it's interesting because the same year that this came out, George Romero put out Night of the Living, or excuse me, Day of the Dead, 1985. And one of the big things that he's doing in that movie is the zombies are becoming intelligent. They're like evolving and getting a little bit smarter. So this is another thing where I think most people credit that idea to Romero, but again, this movie did it in the same year. So I don't know who you
Yeah,
would credit that. But I mean, I'm saying credit them with that, but it's not like anybody has really taken the ball and ran with that. That's not something we really see outside of this movie and some of Romero's movies.
dude, it's so well done in that it's scary and funny, and doing a good job at both, like at the same time. I think it's so well done in that way.
You know what's the perfect like encapsulates that to me is when the guy that his job is the guy that's been looking for these tanks, the military dude or the government official that's been in charge of tracking down these tanks, and he gets the call. And he's getting the call, and it's so dire what they're talking about. It's going to end up leading to the town being nuked and all of the cast being killed and all these innocent people being killed. But there's just something really comedic about the way that he's having the conversation, and the music is really dramatic, and his wife is in the background, and she's like freaking out. And it's just like, what the fuck tone is this? But I don't know what it is, but I love it. It's like
No,
it's
I love his introduction too, where he comes in like, "What's for dinner? Lamb chops. I had that for lunch." Like
yeah.
he's just a grumpy son of a bitch.
How was your day? It was terrible.
Yes,
It's fucking awful. Let me ask you this, because I love when movies do this. Did you forget about him? Like by the time he showed up at the end of the movie, were you like, oh yeah, I forgot that this is how the movie started?
no, not completely.
Mm, I
You
do
know,
every time.
I
Every
don't
time.
know. It's just like he's going to come back into the fold at some point with the advanced equipment, military equipment in his house, and the army connections or whatever. I thought the 1-800 line was going to go. I mean, it did go directly to him, but I thought like it was going to be uh, something, and he was going to affect some rescue. But obviously that didn't
Right,
happen. But I kind
right.
of like how, in the same way they did that in the Blob, though they kind of brought
Mhm.
the government in as the bad guy, and
That's
kind of
the 80s. That's like every 80s movie.
yeah, yeah, right. And the one with blood on their hands, and kind of just made the problem worse in the end. I don't know. That was kind of cool.
Right. Fuck yeah, man. Um, yeah, I guess just to add on to it, man, just to speak a little bit more on some of the characters that I liked. Fucking oh, what the fuck was I gonna say? Oh, where the fuck was I going with that? I had something on the characters. Oh, I'm losing my mind. I should don't do
Yeah,
drugs, folks. Do not do drugs.
there
Um,
were so many great ones though. I thought they did like the dude with the chain in his face. Like nobody understands like what I sacrificed for the movement, and what was
oh
the
yeah,
gang leader? The guy who drove the car. Like that
yeah.
guy.
He sadly, I guess he ended up dying like pretty shortly after this movie came out. Oh,
I don't
this
know.
is what I was just thinking of a minute ago, and I'm like talking about. I was gonna say something about a character. Just continue on what we were talking about. The contingency plan. Just like the way that the one guy is all excited, he's like, "Hey, we've talked to the government. We've called them. They say they've got a contingency plan for situations just like this." And then the one guy, the Puerto Rican guy, Spider, he's like, "Yeah, what's this plan?" Turns out it's a nuclear bomb, and you're all gonna fucking die. It's like it's a
Dude,
great
yeah,
contingency plan.
it is, and it's like a that's brutal hearing that bomb whistle, and Homeboy's just like, "Wait, what?" Like, I don't know. Yeah, that was. But I love how they set it up, and it was just like a repeat of the Toxic Rain, like you said, like bringing the Toxic Rain back into it was great.
Hell yeah, brother! All right, you guys down in the chat, let's hear your final grades on Return of the Living Dead. Stu, lay it on me. Final thoughts and your grade for this
Oh
cult
man,
classic.
such a great one. I definitely an A for me. Well written, well paced, hilarious, scary, just full of surprises. Really well done. So definitely an A for me.
I'm gonna. I'm gonna go just above you. I'm gonna go right there with my buddy Tuca. I got him, man. Just because I was sitting there, I gave the Blob an A plus. I was like blown away by that in Horror Fest, and I think what the Blob does, as far as the tone that we're talking about, the practical effects, this movie I think does it even a little bit better. It's got the music on top of it. It's as fun as the Blob is. I think this movie's even more fun, and it might even be a little bit more scary and a little bit fucking cooler looking. So if I'm giving the Blob an A plus, I'm gonna give Return of the Living Dead an A plus as well. So again, two gun with an A plus. My buddy Chill Out Man also with an A plus. Gonna bring in my little slide so we can talk about what we got going on next week. Oh, let's talk about what we had going on last week, man. Fantastic conversation with Rocket Robbie Billups and our mutual homie Missing Link on Night of the Living Dead. Seriously, great chat. If you haven't watched that one, do me a favor, go back and watch it. I pretty much feel like I fucked the algorithm on this thing. I put it up, and first of all, don't tell anybody out there, don't tell YouTube, but there's naked chicks in it. I didn't even realize there's naked zombies walking around in the episode that I put up last week, because it's like they're dead and I've got them on screen. I'm not even thinking about them. But I realized afterwards, like, oh, that chick is naked. So I put an age restriction on it, and then I screwed up the thumbnail. So I feel like this episode never got a fair shake. It has the highest retention out of anything I've ever put up, which means the people that watch it longer than anything I've ever put up, but it doesn't have the views. So go watch it, and you might watch it for a long time too. So
dude, who did that art? Do you know who did that art right there?
I don't know, but it's for the
man,
the most recent.
That looks like some Jacob Phillips type.
Criterion cover.
Sheesh.
I get what you're saying though. It does kind of look like Jason Phillips. I know what you're talking about. Or Jacob Phillips.
Yeah, from Criminal and all that.
Yeah. Next week, baby, we're talking 28 days later. Perfect fucking timing for this, man, because they just announced a sequel is in the works 28 years later, I think. Or is it 28 months? No, 28 years. I'm pretty damn sure. So that's awesome, man. This is a great flick. This is Steph's pick. We'll be talking about it next week. Steph will be here. I can almost guarantee it. And then we're going to wrap up Zombiefest with The Sadness, buck fucking wild Taiwanese zombie flick. Not for the faint of heart. Fucking do not eat before you watch this if you have a weak stomach. So hell yeah, man. I appreciate all you guys down in the chat. Eric, Two Gun, Chill, Sal up in this bitch. Appreciate all you guys. Stu was up in here. Always appreciate that.
Hope everybody's good.
Yeah, hell yeah, man. For real, you guys are absolutely awesome. Stu, final thoughts and tell us what you got going on with Steph on Supreme Clientele on Dr. Doom's fan club.
First, catch me out on PCP movie night. Do the Right Thing this Monday night, dude. I'm so excited to chop up that classic film with the fellows. I know it's my boy Taki's first appearance on PCP movie night, so I'm excited for that one. And then Supreme Clientele will be returning. I think we're going to do 7 o'clock Tuesday night. We're going to go a little early because I got to turn around and do Omni X-Men with John's Comics Kids and Justin No Good Comics. So
hell
yeah, dude, got a full week next week. And then of course we got you Thursday night with 28 Days Later, and then we're going to do, I think we got William Fable on Friday night. So I think I have
Friday night.
Yeah, he's moving. I think he's doing a Friday night show on the 19th. But I could be wrong.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so I think I have like 4 shows next week. So
fuck, your wife is gonna be pissed, man.
Shh, let's keep that between us, guys.
Yeah.
We'll deal with that later. We'll deal with it later. But
that's the thing. I think all you guys out there in the chat and that watch these shows in the rewind, you don't realize all of our wives are pissed. Just so you know.
Just waiting 5 feet, like literally 5 feet away, just staring at me the entire show.
Oh yeah.
So that's what I'm under duress for sure.
Absolutely, dude. All right, man. Well, you are the best. Again, you guys out there in the chat, you guys are awesome, and we'll see you next week for 28 Days Later. Peace.